Hi, I'm Janae DeVica with Cafe Janae, and I'm here at the beautiful lodge at Morel Ranch in Gallatin, Missouri. Thank you for joining us. How would you like a chocolate that was healthy and delicious and easy to make? Well, that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how to make chocolate truffles covered with pistachios, coconut, or cocoa nibs, and they are delicious to die for. All right, first we're going to start off with some cocoa butter. Now, raw cocoa butter has not been heat processed or alkalized or treated in any other way. It's only been pressed from the raw cocoa bean, so it's full of nutrients. Now I've made a little double boiler here. All I've done is put some warm water in the bottom bowl and stuck another bowl on top of it. You need to be careful not to let water get in the top bowl, because if you put water in the chocolate, it's not going to harden the way it needs to harden. You also don't want to make the chocolate get too hot, because if the chocolate gets too hot, the texture is going to get messed up. It'll be a little bit gritty, so you want to just have it under 115 degrees, so that's just slightly higher than warm, and just mix it in the bowl until it starts to get nice and liquidy. You can see that it's starting to melt already just with the warm water that's underneath the bowl. Now, the thing I love about raw chocolate is you can eat it and it makes you feel great. Normally, chocolate is made by combining sugar and processed chocolate products. So processed alkalized chocolate powder, cocoa butter, sugar, and often some hydrogenated oil to extend the chocolate. And that's very bad for your blood sugar, for your heart, and for your health. So we want to make a chocolate that's going to be healthy for you and full of antioxidants, minerals, vitamins, without all the bad stuff. Instead of sweetening this with sugar, we're going to sweeten this with raw agave nectar. And we're going to use a little bit of stevia to give it a little extra sweetness without having the glycemic index raised at all. So I'm just going to keep stirring this until it becomes liquidy. You can see that it melts down pretty quickly. Cocoa butter melts at about 90 degrees. So you don't need it that hot for it to melt. Now, if you want it to melt extra fast, you grate it with a cheese grater, a fine cheese grater, and that gives it more surface area, so it'll melt a little bit faster. And you'll see I had that pre-grated. Okay, once your cocoa butter has melted down into a golden liquid like this, then you're going to add the sweetener. So we're going to add a little bit of agave nectar. Make sure that your agave nectar is raw. If it doesn't say raw on the bottle, that means it's been heat processed at high temperatures, and it's not going to be as good for you. So we're just going to mix the agave nectar in until it's nice and smooth. And next, we're going to add just a little pinch of salt, like less than a quarter teaspoon of salt. Whenever you add salted chocolate, it enhances the sweetness and the chocolate flavor. And it makes the chocolate just have an extra little oompa that you normally wouldn't get without the salt. Then we're going to add some raw cocoa powder. Now, I've taken this and sifted it through a sifter ahead of time. If you don't sift it, it could get kind of clumpy. So once you sift it, it gets all the clumps out, and you can just pour that in very carefully, a little bit at a time, whisking it the entire time. Now, what we want to get here is a nice creamy paste that we can pour into the pan, and as it cools off, it will harden and turn into a lovely truffle. If you whisk it and pour it in slowly, you won't get any clumps that you'll have to get out later. Now, sometimes people that are used to milk chocolate, they're used to a really sweet chocolate. And so usually before I put all of the cocoa powder in, I taste it to see if it has enough sweetener in it. And a lot of times chocolate is bitter when you don't put the milk and a lot of sugar in it. So it's an acquired taste. If you like dark chocolate, you'll definitely like this. If you like your chocolate a little sweeter, we can add some stevia to the chocolate to make it sweet enough for anyone's taste buds. Okay, so we're just going to do that, and then we'll taste it to see if it's sweet enough. It's delicious, but it needs to be a little bit sweeter, so I'm going to add a little bit of stevia drops to it. maybe just 1/8 of a teaspoon of stevia drops. We're going to mix that in. And then we're going to add the rest of the cocoa powder. Now, as you can see, this is just turning out nice and smooth. It takes a little bit of stirring, but it's well worth your while because this chocolate is going to be dynamite. All right. That looks fantastic. See how it's nice and shiny on top? It's very smooth. It's nice and sweet. And we can taste it one more time just to make sure it's sweet enough. That's very good. I think I'm going to add just a little tiny bit more vanilla or stevia to it, just to give it an extra little bit of sweetness. Now with stevia, you've got to be careful because sometimes stevia gives things a little bit of a bitter aftertaste. Stevia can be up to 300 times sweeter than sugar, so you only want to add a little bit at a time or the stevia can really overwhelm your recipe. Okay, there we go. We've got a nice, shiny, glossy chocolate. It's definitely sweet enough. Now, we're going to pour it into a parchment-lined pan, being very careful not to get any water in the chocolate. So I'm going to take this off and carefully dry it off. If you get water in the chocolate, it will not harden properly. So make sure it's nice and dry. And we're just going to pour this into the parchment-lined pan. Doesn't that look delicious? Okay, we're just going to roll this around to make a nice thin layer of chocolate on the bottom of our pan. Now you can top this with whatever you like. I love topping it with pistachios, coconut, or cocoa nibs, so we're just going to make the variety pack here. I'm just going to put a little sprinkle of pistachios down one side of it, and coconut down the middle, cocoa nibs down the other side, and that way when we cut it, we have a variety of different flavors of chocolate truffles to try. Now this coconut has not been sweetened, so it's non-sulfured, non-sweetened coconut. This is the best kind you can buy. And here are our cocoa nibs. Now cocoa nibs are just the bean of the chocolate bean, and they're just crushed up. So this is what the cocoa powder and cocoa butter are before they've been separated. So this is just crushed chocolate beans. They're very crunchy, nice like chocolate chip, but it's nice and bitter. So there we have our raw chocolate truffles with pistachios, coconut, and cocoa nibs. And all you do is just leave that in the refrigerator for about 15 or 20 minutes. It will harden up, and then you cut it into little squares. And that's it.